The revolution is here. A movement of people free to live, work, and choose. We won't tell you what to think. We just demand that you think for yourself. This is Kibbe on Liberty.
If we go off the rails, I'll try to bring us back in, but I usually fail at that. And oh, look.
You're editing later, right?
Yeah.
You do edit.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
let's make that a...
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, the best one.
It's for this show, we only do edits if something really stupid happens. Because
And try not to tap on the table too much unless you need to.
And another thing.
Should we like do a promo?
yeah,
Rather not.
it's a beautiful can.
It's a beer.
Yeah. We used to have it in Germany, like all over.
Let's call them.
All right, let's have some beer.
So you're going to open them up now then?
Yeah,
Not
just like
during
that.
the podcast? Okay.
Well, the podcast has actually started.
Remember the old German soft drink called Pshit?
No.
It's old. It used to be because it made that sound,
Yeah.
Pshit. But I don't know, 40 years ago, they discontinued it because as more Germans learned English,
The problem is I wasn't alive.
it sounded like, shit.
It only
So-
looks old.
So it literally tasted like shit.
No, it was okay.
Yeah.
But that was the name of it, and because of the linguistic transformation of the country, they discontinued it.
Okay. Cheers,
Cheers.
guys. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Zumbola.
So we are there's a lot of reasons to celebrate and be excited about being here because we are at the European Students for Liberty gathering. We've all gathered in person after 2 years of not so much doing that. But I specifically wanted to talk to you guys because you're in the middle of a project of getting medical supplies and other desperately needed things to the people of Ukraine. And before we get into that, let's just have everybody briefly introduce themselves. People know Tom Palmer, but Tom, what's your deal?
Well, I have the privilege of working with Atlas Network, which is a global network of over 500 organizations in, I think, 102 countries right now. And it allows me to be with some of the coolest people in the world, including those here at Students for Liberty, LibertyCon in Europe. That's what I do.
Tomek.
Well, Tomek is in Polish. It's a little version of Tom. So I guess it's also.
It's a cooler
something.
way to say Tom. Is that fair?
Yes, it's much cooler than
Yeah.
Tom. But it would be Tomasz in Polish, but even less cool. I run Center of Capitalism Poland, which is like NGO, which goal is to do a good PR for capitalism. But specifically, like last months, years, I'm more focused on building our laissez-faire community, laissez-faire Poland, like underground network of friends and friends in liberty who are not only preaching liberty, but actually doing it.
So who's your favorite economist?
Economist, Mises.
Okay. So you're good people.
Yeah.
We talk.
Hopefully.
Actually, every time I quote Hayek on this show, we have to drink. So I suppose we need to do that right now. Well, I didn't quote him, but spontaneous order. Yeah.
Spontaneous order.
And Andreas.
I'm the CEO of Freedom Today Network, which is like an international media company, but we focus on countries like Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, Venezuela, where people really need help, where they can't get published, so we try to help them. That's why I stepped in also in this Ukrainian project.
Yeah. So let's get right into the Ukrainian project. And Tom, I've been following this through your Facebook post and your colleagues at the Atlas Network. But talk about the idea that Atlas had to forget about like all the governments and all the official agencies that are supposed to solve these problems according to the official narrative, but you guys just decided to do something.
Well, not only us, and I mean these gentlemen and many others were really important initiators of a process. I found myself in Turkey as the military buildup was moving up, and then I got COVID and I got stuck in a hotel quarantine and was in touch with Ukrainian partners. And so when the attack came, we organized a webinar, and my colleague from Georgia, Ellen Saakashvili, who's just a really far-sighted person, said, let's create a Ukraine Freedom Fund. It's a great idea. And we raised hundreds of thousands of dollars on that webinar with partners and friends from around the world. And as soon as I could get out, I immediately went to the sporting goods shop, bought really warm clothes because Ukraine was really cold that time of year, and hopped on the next flight to Warsaw, and then met up with her buddies there. I'd been in touch with Andreas and with Tomek, and this network of friends of friends of friends just moved out. My specialty, in addition to being able to drive and driving cars back and forth, was to raise money. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do. But our buddies and the men and women of this network have really stepped up and found out what do they need inside Ukraine at the micro level. This hospital needs this medicine. Find out our friends in Europe, say we can find that medicine in Denmark or Germany or wherever it happens to be, get it typically to Warsaw or Krakow, and then get them loaded and take them over to where they need to be.
So it's really sort of taking all of the existing relationships of the Atlas network, all Liberty people doing all sorts of things in all sorts of countries, and taking that decentralized knowledge and applying it to something. It's not about thinking; it's about doing. And the thing I like about this story is free people collaborating to solve a problem that needs to be fixed.
You know, Tomek raised the question. We had a conversation about, well, there's some advantages to hierarchy and people knowing what needs to go where, but the outcome was we decided that's not a bad thing. There are big hierarchical organizations that do good things like Red Cross and so on. But this also identified this very particular need, not big mass needs, but this one here and here and here and here, and then found out what those people needed. And so these guys have just been really heroic, in my opinion, for stepping up and doing that.
So talk a little, Tomek, we'll start with you, but talk a little bit about specifically what does that mean in terms of what you do?
Well, I was not even planning to be involved in this until one heavy morning for me when I was playing chess on my phone in a meditation room. And then I see a call from Andreas Jürgens on Telegram. And thinking, okay, probably this guy still is on a party. And I go, man, what's up, Andreas? And he tells me, Tomek, we need 2,000 vests. We have friends in Ukraine. Tom Palmer is coming tomorrow. And we have friends in America who can send some money. Can you arrange us 2,000 bulletproof vests? I'm like, I don't think if I ever seen bulletproof vests, maybe somewhere Amazon, I don't know. Okay, I will find you 2,000 vests. So eventually we found 300 vests next day. And next day I was all in. We started exchanging calls about moving some people, evacuating some people, buying helmets, buying medicines. And that's why me and Tom and Andreas as well, we are still surprised how this emerged without actually any hierarchy, without organization, also without any market signals. So the network of established trust had to be there in place in order to satisfy those particular needs of downs of this logistic systems, because sometimes friends were the first days, for example, people were asking for medicines in Poland, and hey, can you get me one of this medicine, one piece? Then you have to go to the pharmacy, spend 1 hour, stay in line to get this one medicine to be sent somehow to Lviv. People were questioning us, why guys you do it? If there is government agencies, there is NGOs who can buy directly from the warehouses, from the suppliers, from producers, and they do actually transport them week after into the war they did. Into Ukraine with trains, safe and with big batches. I forwarded these doubts to our Ukrainian friends, and they said, yes, we know these trains are coming, but they are slow, and we just know that in this city there is no such medicine. So we had this network of people bringing medicines or whatever to a small underground logistics center in Warsaw, where lots of friends of Tom, friends of Andreas were coming, and they were forwarding needs. We were just matchmaking those in need in Ukraine, so they were contacting us what they need with people in power, people with some supplies or resources to help them. And this matchmaking was created this mesh network of people, individuals who did not even, they don't know Mises, even less they know what is Atlas network, but those were just people who either hate Putin or just wanted to do something good.
Wanted to help, yeah. And so I heard body armor, I heard medicine, There's been cars, right? Like, what's
plenty.
what is if I was studying the menu of this spontaneous network? What could I order?
It's open menu. You just order what you want, and then we had to answer you when it is available.
Okay.
But there were some needs that were complementary to others. So you could get a bunch of stuff, but if you can't transport it, it's useless. And so our other friends, like Bartek, for example, he just found cars and traveled all across Poland and found used cars. Found for me a 21st century car. It's a 2002 Dodge Chrysler Voyager. We took out the back seat. It's a great car. Drove it all through Ukraine. And then I ended up buying Tomek's dad's car as well for my second car. But there were things that ended up being complementary purchases, and you didn't know that maybe in advance. You knew it when the need arose to respond to it.
At some point, like every day, we were sending another car because friends in Ukraine were calling us, hey, we need a bus, we need a jeep, we need something to transport bodies or transport supplies or whatever. And they were just sending us a list of cars. And in the meantime, Bartek or somebody else was looking for this car, but we don't want to send this car empty. So we are finding sometimes undercover soldiers, sometimes some medicorps, sometimes just volunteers, passengers who wanted to go to the Ukraine with packages, boxes, people who were sending stuff, NGOs who were sending like big batches of supplies, and you had to like arrange in one day that few cars with few people with 20 of different boxes, they have to meet at one point to cross the border and then go also to these 20 different places, which was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
And it was happening like every day. Like we were not sleeping for a few days probably. Then it slowed down. And I'm not sure if it's about the war slowing down, but also I think that already some supply chains were established. Already people had already connections, had networks, and things that had to be done, had to be sent to Ukraine or whatever had to be arranged, like I don't know, satellite phones, helmets, or ammunition. It had already its routes of logistical routes to Ukraine. So such underground guerrilla group of emergency aid was just not needed, and it's not that much needed in times which are a bit less chaotic than they were a month ago.
Yeah. So you're an agitator and a respected member of the media.
Thanks. Yeah. From my point of view, I just can give the compliment back to these gentlemen. I mean, I called them at the beginning, and they responded like after a minute, "Yeah, I'm in." And Tom just said, "I fly to Russia." Tomek said, "Yeah, we start." Like he said before, I mean, to be honest, you have to find these people, and they are amazing from my point of view. And then we started, and then it grew, and we brought in friends like Fred, Maria. So Fred's wife is from Ukraine. So we established all the connections, and we just started. I mean, to be honest, I don't even remember. Sometimes we didn't remember what day it was, or what week, or was it Sunday, Monday? No idea, not at all. Yeah, so then we started, and then, as you mentioned, as a media guy, I also used is the wrong term, used the possibility. I went to Kiev. I was in Bucha, Irpin, Borodyanka. I saw all the mass graves. I could see into the hell, to be honest. That is just pure evil. Yeah. There's no word to describe that.
Yeah. The process here is some sort of combination. I was grilling Tom about this last night. You have this network, and you have this in some ways very old-fashioned people who trust other people who have certain skills coming together and solving problems, and that's the whole process that we believe in as people that believe in freedom. But you also have some cool tech tools that have to turbocharge this, and one of the things that you're coordinating through Telegram, WhatsApp,
Signal. Facebook Messenger sometimes. I mean, whatever works.
Yeah, I do Signal. I'm told it's more secure, but I don't know.
But don't give us too much credit. It's not like we are coordinating. It is somehow coordinating itself.
It just
there is no one
there's
Facebook
no central
group. There is no website. It's just we are on 50 maybe different Telegram Signal groups, and sometimes you don't know where to answer to whom. You have to be constantly on 5 different apps with different people.
There's an upside and there's a downside.
Sure.
I get a message and it pops up on my screen, and if I don't answer, I say, "Oh my God, what app was that on?"
Yeah.
Was it Signal or Telegram or whatever you? And we created and proliferated, when I say we, I mean all of us, groups dealing with body armor, people who knew about that, groups dealing with cars, groups of people dealing with
drugs.
We say medical supplies to avoid confusion.
Andreas has a whole separate business.
And so on. And so those, they sometimes get a little bit out of control, but it meant that you could connect these people. So I've had now friends, Russian-speaking friends in Turkey, who contacted me and said, what can we do? I put them in touch with Polish friends. They said there's a need now for Russian speakers to come and help refugees. We have 4,000 people have just come from the east in this one area, and they need Russian speakers there to help them sort themselves out and find housing and so on. And so I created a little group for Russian speakers coming to Ukraine, for this Russian-speaking diaspora who are opponents of Putin and hate what is happening but want to help.
Yeah.
So it is really quite decentralized, but it also is the sort of thing out of which firms tend to emerge over time. We hope this doesn't last long enough for that to have to happen.
Yeah.
But initially, this is how social coordination happens. It doesn't start with a boss saying, I'm the manager of everything. That's usually not going to work. It starts from people making these connections. One other, for example, I was contacted by a former Cato Institute intern who was buddies with another Cato Institute intern who's in Ukraine, so David, and
Mikhailo.
Because of an age difference, I know the Ukrainian is Mikhailo, and he knew him as Misha. And he said, I'm in touch with Misha. And I said, okay, let me put you in touch with Mikhailo. The same person. But man, David has been just amazing working with our German friends and sourcing all of these hard-to-find things from Germany and getting them into Ukraine.
Yeah.
And it's also super hard to get, for example, like medical stuff like antibiotica and stuff like that, because you need prescriptions for that, and then you need to find doctors who give it to you for free or write you prescription for whatever. I mean, I could never get like 10,000 paracetamol, because I mean the guys in the pharmacy were looking like, what do you want with 10,000 paracetamol? I said, I bring it to Ukraine. Okay, you can have it for the half price. It was always like that. Everybody was so helpful. And I also want to mention, Tomek mentioned before that we're going to bring, for example, cars into Ukraine. But if somebody is going back, we normally never go alone. For example, I had a friend, he's from the Netherlands, and his, father-in-law, the family-in-law was from Kharkiv, and they asked, Andreas, do you know somebody who could help us? Yeah, I connected them with Tom, and Tom brought them from Lviv to Warsaw to the airport, and they fly to Amsterdam, and I think it was their first flight ever, maybe. So this is what we also do, like rescuing people. Why? Because why should you drive alone back?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about crossing the border it's always from Poland, I assume, into Ukraine.
Sometimes from Slovakia.
And we have friends who cross from Romania also.
Yeah. So getting in is one challenge, but getting out, you're rescuing people too, right?
Yeah.
Talk about the process. I'm going to throw this on you.
Well, the process looked like most of them. Somebody asks us, sends us a request, who is where, and even like if we don't have any person, I don't know, in Ivano-Frankivsk or Vinica, we ask people we didn't know a day ago on some Signal group, hey, somebody maybe has this person. Yes, I will connect you to somebody. So there is so often, like we did it with people that we don't even know. Tom, when he came and we had this little group chat with our activists, and Tom asked me, okay, Tomek, but who are these people? Like, what is this, some organization? Do you know them? And I'm like, no, I didn't know them like 2 days ago. But suddenly, and I saw it, and it was proven that they were like people of high trust and reliable people.
But it also meant just if you have extra seats in your car, go to the train station and just go and say, does anyone want to ride? Now, you know, a mom and a child getting in a car with a man they don't know, I mean, this is a bit dangerous. And so there were people there who make sure they checked us, called back to Poland, who are these people, have some authority, or talked to a member of parliament, say, yes, I vouch for this person. And then, God bless them, they made sure that those women shared their phone numbers with the organizers, that they could call them. They had my phone number, so that it's not just some guy picking up a woman and her children. That's a scary prospect. But they had security checks to make sure, and then we took them and made sure in touch with their relatives or family or friends in Poland or Spain, that we were in touch with them to deliver them, I don't like that word, to help them go to where they wanted to go.
Right. So I guess what I'm asking, and this is ignorance, crossing the border, is it safe? Is it an open border? Are there checkpoints? Do people try to stop you?
Checkpoints on the Czech border, but pull points on the Polish border.
Fair enough.
But we, the sad thing is, it was easier to go from Ukraine to Poland than Poland to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because of the bureaucracy. And this is a thing that our Ukrainian partners are fighting to reduce these restrictions on bringing in all this life-saving material. So we had friends from Sweden and England who just spent 5 hours on the border.
At least.
And now Andreas is publicizing this, and our Ukrainian friends are saying, get rid of this. They already did it once. On my last 3 trips, I had 3.5 hours, 2.5 hours, and then less than 15 minutes, because our friends pushed through legislation getting rid of it, and then it came back.
Yeah.
It's madness, and it's self-imposed harm by Ukrainian bureaucrats on Ukrainian people. But our Ukrainian friends get it, and they're trying to get rid of this just stupidity.
Yes, especially because they were super successful because of that goods could cross the border super fast at the beginning, that private people stepped in and helped, because we talked to so many people, for sure, from parliaments from all over the world nearly, and they thought that all the help which is provided is being provided from governments. And it's totally the opposite. Like 95% are being shipped in by private people.
Yeah.
And it includes lots of organizations, Knights of Malta,
NGOs,
NGOs from Spain, from Catalonia, from Italy, from all over. And so it's, when you see cars lined up, look at the license plates: Germany, Spain, Italy, Denmark, Switzerland, Sweden, and so on. And those are people who are connected to hospitals or clinics or children's schools. Friends of mine right now, they're trying to evacuate 350 children with disabilities from Kharkiv. This is a difficult thing because they really need special transportation and special assistance. And finding the people who can get the right vehicles to be able to bring them, and then someplace where they can go and be safe, because you can't have disabled children generally, in a war zone. And this has just come people all over Europe and also from abroad. Canadians, Americans, Mexicans, Argentines that I have met who have been there saying, man, this is our struggle too. We are here for you.
That's very cool. Tom, you had mentioned a number earlier, and I want to talk about your role as sort of tapping into the Atlas Network donor base to pitch in on this. You've been successful.
I think so. I'd like to be more successful, but one of the things that we have done with our very generous donors was we said, if you would donate to this fund, we make sure it all goes to our Ukrainian partners for things they specify, that they identify. They have the knowledge we don't have. They tell us what they need. We get an application, we vet it, so we are very careful about that. And these are trusted partners. And then usually with a Western European group, or just a partner within Europe, we'll partner to receive the money because that's where it's going to be expended, in Czech Republic or Romania or someplace, for buying these products, Poland and so on, and then get them to it. So it's been so far well in excess of $2 million, well over $2.5 million dollars, and that's dedicated for several purposes. One is to help with these emergency humanitarian needs. Second, we want to make sure that the freedom movement in Ukraine stays alive. Their donors have been killed or fled the country or had their businesses bombed and blown up, and they're all focusing on these issues as well. So we want to make sure that the freedom movement is not extinguished by this, because what will keep Ukraine alive as an independent country is freedom.
Yeah.
This is really important. And so we are also funding them to develop such things as menus of stupid, idiotic laws that harm Ukrainians to be eliminated. to get rid of this smothering bureaucracy, which is a legacy of their Soviet past, which has not yet been all swept away, to secure rights to enter and start a business and be an entrepreneur without having to have oligarchical connections, just so a normal person could launch a new business. And so a portion of that also is to maintain that so that after this horrific war is over, we don't know how it's going to end, we hope with the invasion stopped and pushed out, that they will be able to create a really free social, political, and economic order in the country.
Yeah, it might be an opportunity. And I had Natalia on my show, and we were interrupted by air raid sirens and all sorts of drama. But it was just a few days after the Ukrainian parliament liberalized your right to defend yourself and to carry arms. And from her perspective, and certainly from mine, too little, too late. But I understand how controversial gun ownership is in all of Europe. But beyond that, to the point you're making, it seems like an opportunity to point out that economic liberalization means energy independence. It means economic power. You have resources. And this is pretty true for a lot of these countries that are feeling anxious about what Russia is doing to Ukraine. My friends in Georgia feel quite anxious about it, and rightly so. But this might be an opportunity to say, you know what? Our national strength comes from the strength of our individuals. And I think there's an opportunity here to strip away some of the vestiges of the old Soviet bureaucracy ideology.
Tom mentioned some laws. I think one of the most important laws they get rid of right now was the law for importing cars, because they had a tax of 150% of importing cars, which is like super idiotic. I mean, just even in reality or normal life.
Which at the end would be imposed on our volunteer drivers who just volunteered to drive the car and help us to move supplies there.
I had this problem. I drove in with one car that I bought, and I left it with friends who took it deeper into the country, and then I hitched the ride back and got another one. When I drove in the second time with the other car, they said, "You came in with a different car. Where is it?" I said, "Well, it's in Ukraine right now." It was like, God forbid you would give something to the Ukrainian people to deliver humanitarian aid. I said, "Well, will you bring it back?" And I said, "If it survives the war, yeah, sure, I'm going to bring it back." And finally, one customs official, after this nightmare paperwork and being grilled, came and said, look, he understood. This is crazy. He said, "Do you just promise to bring the car back?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, good. Stamp. Good luck."
Yeah, just promise.
All I had to do. But it was like this horror of the bureaucracy. And fortunately, they said, we have to get rid of this. And as one of our friends in Parliament, Marian Zablotsky, put it on the phone to me, he said, "Restrictions that are harmful in war will not be helpful in peace." We want to get rid of them, and at the end of this, we want to have the freest country, one of the freest countries in Europe, if not the freest. And I think that is a noble aspiration, and it is the smartest strategy for making sure Ukraine is independent and not subjected to this again.
Yeah.
Especially since we have example by this whole situation for the last 2 months, how much like private charity and individual activism could help more than government. And Poland is a good example of it. Everybody's Poland, okay, maybe not that much now, but for the first weeks was super excited how much solidarity we could show with our neighbors, how we could accommodate 2 million immigrants at our homes, schools, gyms, without that much of like organized top-down system from the government. That's, I think, something that people could look at later, that maybe we actually don't need government specifically doing that thing, because more effective is when this information flows through individuals than through slow, old-fashioned government agencies.
What is also a huge advantage of what we are doing is when government's shipping in goods, they're being brought, like, for example, to the train station of Lviv, and then nobody really knows where it's going. We pick it up where we got it, like in Warsaw or wherever, and we bring it directly to where it's needed. So from A to B, there's no person between it. So it goes.
I mean, there is 20 people between.
Yeah, between it, but but you know, in general, from where you get it and you bring it where it's needed.
Yeah.
There was no leakage, let's put it that way, which usually happens with a company. But it doesn't have to be all one or all the other.
No.
Usually the status type has the all government. I said that's madness. It doesn't mean there's no role for government. No. But it means that we should understand the nimbleness of the voluntary sector to respond to these needs.
And sorry, and also, I mean, we can't get like tanks or stuff like that. We don't want that. I mean, that's the job of the government. I mean, I don't want to ship a tank over to Ukraine, to be honest.
Yeah. I sort of want. I want a tank.
Yeah.
Okay, you can have one.
Actually, I want to make a quick clarification.
Sure.
All the money that I have raised, 100% goes to non-lethal humanitarian aid, and we're very careful about that. If other people want to take in ammunition, as governments and some private groups have done, that's what they're doing. We have focused exclusively on life-saving things, and that does include body armor because Russian snipers do kill ambulance drivers and medics, and they need protection.
And press.
And we've also delivered now armored cars because the vehicles, Tomek mentioned all the cars that we've gotten, some of them have been badly shot up. Well, you don't need an armored car to bring it to Lviv, but if you're going to take it to Kharkiv or to Donetsk or Dnipro, it's much better to be in an armored car, so that we have now a relay. Non-armored cars bring it in, and it can be passed off to armored cars to take it to the hot zones that are dangerous.
Tomek, I wanted to go back just for a second, because as I understand it, Poland has done something unique and I think important with Ukrainian refugees, saying basically, come here, get a job, you're allowed to work, and you're allowed to feed your own families instead of being sort of pushed off into a refugee camp. And Europe's had a problem with allowing the flow of labor from one place to another. Am I characterizing that correctly in this case?
Kind of. Poland used to be an example of nationalist state who does not want refugees 5 years back. Now we are like a contrary example. And it's not all Poland, but most of it. Because, of course, there are people who have problems. And you can see how in political debate these topics already start. Okay, who's going to give job to them? Who's going to give welfare? How do we educate these refugees? What about their healthcare? So it, of course, will create eventually some tensions, and it does. But so far, well, we are somehow excited about this probably long-lasting friendship with Ukraine that we like most of the, let's say, Polish public opinion, we even forgot about our own problems for these 2 months.
Yeah.
Eventually, we will wake up probably someday in August or October, looking at our inflation, looking at our government bad decisions in the past many years. Hopefully people will not blame it on Ukraine. Government might try to.
We may have to do a whole separate show on
maybe.
My government's waking up to inflation, but that's a topic for another day.
They already call it Putinflation.
Yeah.
To have somebody to blame it on.
Yeah.
You mentioned before, I mean, or Tomek mentioned like the refugee crisis 5 years ago. The biggest problem in Germany during that time was that all the refugees who came, I mean, it was super cool that Germany did that, but they weren't allowed to work for 18 months.
Right.
And to be honest, wherever somebody of us goes and is not allowed to work for 18 months, what shall we do? So this is like horrible. So it was super cool what Poland did, especially the years before they were attacked badly because of not taking refugees.
Hopefully it's a model and it doesn't get confused with all of the other things that go on in a complex economy, because I look at places like France. I've paid some attention to this, and the unwillingness of the labor unions and the government to sort of open up labor markets to people coming in has been incredibly destructive.
Well, the one thing, it's because they don't get it that people working are creating wealth.
Yeah.
But they see it as taking a job. It's creating another job, if you will, and creating wealth that can be used to purchase the things created by other people. So Say's law of markets. Supply generates something that can be used to purchase what other people produce.
You quoted a dead economist, so we have to
Okay,
drink to that.
there we go.
There's to say.
You don't say. But Say's law is important here. It's really significant. And probably not for theoretical reasons, the Polish government got it.
Yeah.
And so people can come and work, and they create value, and with it, the dignity of living their own lives. The last thing anyone should want are refugee camps. They're a catastrophe for everybody. Let them work.
Yeah.
Now, the Polish liberals also understand that a lot of the welcome will wear away. Your cousins have a hurricane destroy their home. They come live in your living room. That's great for a while. At some point, you need to make sure that
trust me, my brother moved in once. And
there we go.
it felt great for
long, for
48 hours. Yeah.
But it means also dealing with things like how can you accommodate them in school system and medical care system, and not have them perceived as just taking our benefits.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a difficult problem that, again, the Polish free market community is thinking about this and how to address that. And normally the answer is allow more liberalization in those markets to be able to produce the goods of education, of creches, because most of the refugees are women with kids. Well, who's going to watch the kids while they're working to support themselves? There needs to be some sort of system for that. And those are issues that need to be addressed in a thoughtful, systematic way, and not have the mentality too many people have, the government will take care of that, because they won't.
Yeah. So we talked about WhatsApp, but one of you guys was mentioning Bitcoin as a piece of this puzzle too. And this is a libertarian podcast, and when I hear Bitcoin, I get all excited. So explain this piece of the puzzle.
I think it's not just Bitcoin, it's crypto in general.
Yeah, crypto.
I mean, we use everything what's available right now.
Andreas did a lot of Bitcoin crowdfunding, and this whole operations gave few examples how much we need uncensored private money, like Bitcoin is, because once we had this few examples, Friday afternoon, somebody was sending me money for the car. I was sending somebody money for the car. We had few thousand dollars locked in this old-fashioned SWIFT system, and you could use this money only on Monday 12th, while you need to pay cash to the car dealer. How are you gonna do it? And at the time there was a run on cash in Poland. It was hard to get. You had to scribe $50 from various ATMs. It wasn't a problem with Bitcoin ATMs. Transferring this money wasn't a problem with Bitcoin. It was very quick. It was cheaper than transferring and getting donations from US and from other countries. It was easier to crowdfund. It was easier to send big amounts of money because I wouldn't get probably big amount of money on my account, because first I would get a call from bank or from tax office. Hey,
From the tax office, I think.
Where is the money from? Show me some documents. I will send you this in 2 days. With Bitcoin, nobody checked it, and we could do it quite safely and quickly.
There's another shout out though. Maybe you could talk, Andreas, because a mutual friend, Faisal, who runs Ideas Beyond Borders, great organization. And he's connected to the Signal Foundation, and you connected with him and got donations that way also.
So the guys from Signal app, they created an own coin. It's called Mobile Coin. I don't know how safe it is, because it's right now a beta version, but it looks super safe. So you can transfer money via the app, and you can just send it in 1 second. So I got donations from them from the US, and Misha got it 5 seconds later. And he could use it. And what Tomek mentioned before, I mean, it goes on one nerve if we have, for example, $20,000 for 4 days, which we can't access, because we could buy whatever we need, and that could save lives. So.
And the Signal guy, it's personal for him. Yeah,
it's personal. Especially the CEO of Mobile Coin right now, his parents are from Odessa. So that's why they stepped in, because for sure he has a personal interest. But I love them. The whole team of them are amazing. They try to help as much as they can. And Tom mentioned, Faisal is also great. I mean, he did a lot of good work in the Middle East, and he connected us. So, because... Cool.
So, Tom, if somebody watching this wants to invest in this project, I know Atlas Network has set up a place where they can go.
It's very easy. Go to atlasnetwork, all one word, .org. And on the top of the page, it says you can support in Ukraine Freedom Fund. Click on that. It's all explained. And we are scrupulously careful on number one, only non-lethal humanitarian aid. Number two, 100% down to the billionth of a Bitcoin goes to Ukrainian projects. And we're very careful with how it's spent. And one of the things I should also mention, I'm very proud of what flinty skinflints our partners are at always finding the cheapest way to satisfy the need and saying, we can get this cheaper here. We'll talk to a company, as you said, we'll give it to you for cost. Pharmaceutical firms that when approached by the right person say, we have this in stock, you can have it at our cost. And then getting it into the right people with this network of volunteers. And I would have to say it's many hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, in labor costs that are donated by this array of people who just up and said, I'll do that. I'm willing to drive 16 hours to deliver these things. If you
drive 10 and wait 6 on the border.
Yeah. Well,
that's from Warsaw.
but and sometimes under scary situations, all of these people are volunteers. So that money that's donated is being complemented by the volunteer labor. It's like doubling your donation to get exactly what needs to go into the right place. And the last thing is, so many people are so wonderfully helpful to refugees escaping, and God bless them. It really moved me to tears to see all these Polish people out there helping people, feeding them, people dressed as cartoon characters to greet traumatized tiny children at the train stations. Really astonishing. Ours is all inside Ukraine. So, and I love the people who do it for those who are coming out because they need the help. But we have focused exclusively on things inside Ukraine and sometimes in these hot, scary places.
And also at the same website, you can find all of your Ukrainian partners.
Yeah. Well, they're listed there, so you can check them out. I will mention that people listening should also be a little bit aware, anytime there's a crisis, there are terrible people who exploit other people, say raise money for Ukraine or this earthquake or whatever, and they're cheating them. Mm-hmm. So if you are donating, make sure that you check, and so I'm going to say it about us too, right? Make sure you check the bona fides, that you look at it, make sure this is a reputable organization. If you're going to donate to something like that, it's important because there have been some scams that have. It's just such a hateful, monstrous thing to do, but
it's
our human population has some of those people.
It's the way it is.
But I think we are super successful because of Tom. I mean, all the people, like, we know each other since years. We trust each other. I mean, I wouldn't do that without trusting these people because I don't risk my life for like idiots or something like that.
Yeah, you can't replace trust with something else.
Well, and let me mention, we had a bit of a trial run for this with the Afghan collapse. We had partners in Afghanistan. And it was horrific when the Taliban swept through, and I was in touch with them constantly, using WhatsApp in this case, as they were being hunted by murder squads, and finally were able to get substantial numbers of people out. We raised money to help them on an emergency basis. And once we knew something about that, we did it again in the Ukraine case. Let's hope we don't have to do this in future and we can go back to business as usual, which is incremental improvement in government policy to help societies be freer and more just. But in these emergency cases, what else can you do?
Yeah. Tomek, if people want to check you out, your organization, where would they find you?
Check me out.
Check you out.
At Twitter, Instagram. Laissez-faire.pl, centrumkapitalizmu.pl. I'm on Facebook, Twitter.
All right.
We didn't even, honestly, me personally and our organization, I don't think we ever posted anything. Atlas Network was doing that. They have more, observers, etc. Just we didn't have time to do this social media, so it's not even people that don't know that we do it.
It's super easy. Freedom Today Network, ftn.media. You can find everything. If you also want to donate, we created an own organization for Students for Liberty in Ukraine. It's called standwithukraine.ch. So, but it goes the same way like the Atlas money. So it's still the same people, all our friends. And that's also, I wanted to mention something why we are here. I wouldn't do that without, these people are my friends. and I would never leave my friends alone. And there was just a famous quote, which Tom quoted, if somebody needs help, Students for Liberty are there. I think we could now push it a little bit back, so now we are there for them.
Well, it's important also to mention that our friend in Ukraine, Misha Lavrovsky, who is an activist and very, very honest and good person fighting.
And he runs
there.
a think tank.
And it's also because of him we are doing this, so cheers to Misha.
Cheers.
And to freedom.
And
Slava Ukraini.
to a rare happy story about Ukraine.
Hopefully.
Yes.
We will.
Bingo.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
You know how I know when a show is over?
That was a good idea.
My beer's empty.
Interesting timer.
Yeah.
I thought like for a second somebody brought his glasses. Now we're going to whiskey, but then I
Yeah.
saw the water.
Someone actually thought water, but I don't even know what that's for.
Showering.
Okay, thank you. Is that okay, guys?
Yeah. I'm
Well,
fine.
let's just do it again.
Yeah. Let's get right this time.
Oh wait, yeah, the camera wasn't running.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that show, make sure that you like and subscribe. Click the little bell so that you get notifications. And if you consume this via podcast, go wherever you want to go. We're everywhere. Kibbe on Liberty. The revolution starts now.